The screen door slammed like a gunshot in the sticky July heat of rural Massachusetts, and Nathaniel's world shattered before he could even scream. "You're not my son anymore," his mother spat, her voice a venomous whip cracking through the kitchen where Grandma's apple pie still cooled on the windowsill, the scent of cinnamon mocking the bile rising in his throat. In that instant, as her hand clamped around his arm like a vice forged in hell, he saw it all. The boy he'd been, the man he was becoming, ripped away from the only anchor that had ever felt like home. Nathaniel was 17 when the truth clawed its way out of him, spilling into the world like blood from a fresh wound. It happened on a sweltering afternoon in their cramped clapboard house on the outskirts of Concord, where the Minuteman Trail whispered secrets through the maples, and the air hummed with the ghosts of revolutions long past. He'd been home from school early, backpack slung over one shoulder, heart pounding from a stolen kiss behind the bleachers with Tommy Hargrove, a fumbling, electric thing that tasted like cherry chapstick and forbidden fire. Grandma Ellie, with her flour-dusted apron and eyes like polished chestnuts, had been waiting in the kitchen, humming an old Joan Baez tune as she kneaded dough for her famous cider donuts. "Come here, Natty," she'd called, her voice a warm gravel that wrapped around him like a quilt from her sewing room. He dropped his bag and buried his face in her shoulder, the scent of lavender soap and fresh earth grounding him as the adrenaline from the kiss ebbed away. She didn't pry, not then. Grandmas like Ellie never did. They just knew. "Rough day at the front?" she'd asked, wiping a smudge of flour on his cheek with her thumb. He'd nodded, throat tight, and that was enough. She pulled him into a chair, poured him a glass of iced tea from the pitcher sweating on the counter, and slid a plate of warm donuts his way. "Eat. And remember, boy, love's the only revolution worth fighting for." That night, as the sun dipped low and painted the fields in bruised purples, Nathaniel's mother, Karen, came home from her shift at the mill, her nurse's scrubs stained with the invisible weight of other people's dying. She was a woman carved from granite. 42 years of Baptist hymns and unspoken resentments, her marriage to Nathaniel's father a casualty of his bourbon-soaked wanderings years ago. Karen had raised Nathaniel alone after Dad skipped town for good, her love a fierce, thorny thing that demanded perfection. She tolerated Ellie's presence in their lives like a necessary evil, the mother-in-law who owned the house they rented, the widow who baked pies and quoted Emerson but clung to her ways from the old neighborhood in Boston, where Italian grandmothers gossiped over espresso and nobody blinked at the flamboyant tailor down the block. But tolerance has limits, and Nathaniel's secret kiss crossed them all. Tommy had texted him, a careless, "Miss you already 3, from the family landline, because the boy's flip phone was busted. Karen saw it blink on the caller ID, picked up the receiver mid-ring, and heard Tommy's voice crack with teenage bravado. "Hey, Nat, that was hot. Round 2 tomorrow." The line went dead as Karen's finger stabbed the hook, but the damage was done. She burst into Nathaniel's room upstairs, where he was sprawled on his bed sketching charcoal portraits of half-naked Greek statues from the library art book, his door ajar because trust was a currency she'd never fully withdrawn. "What the hell is this?" she hissed, waving the phone like a crucifix at a vampire. Nathaniel bolted upright, charcoal smudging his fingers black as sin. His heart jackhammered against his ribs, the room spinning with the acrid tang of her cigarette smoke clinging to her clothes. "Mom, it's nothing." "Nothing?" That was a boy asking for. "For what?" Round 2, her face twisted, a mask of disgust and dawning horror, veins bulging in her neck like rivers about to flood. She lunged forward, snatching the sketchbook from his lap, flipping through pages of lithe bodies and longing glances. Jesus Christ, Nathaniel. Are you one of them, queer? In my house. The word landed like a slap, raw and echoing. Nathaniel's cheeks burned, but he lifted his chin. The fire Tommy's kiss had ignited still smoldering in his chest. Yeah, Mom. I am. And it's not one of them. It's me. The kitchen erupted 20 minutes later. Grandma Ellie had wandered up from her garden out back, drawn by the raised voices filtering through the screen door like smoke signals. She pushed into the fray just as Karen grabbed Nathaniel's arm, her nails digging crescents into his skin. Pack your shit, Karen snarled. You're not staying under this roof. Not with her filling your head with that liberal bullshit. Ellie stepped between them, her small frame a barricade of unyielding oak. Karen Marie Russo, you put that boy down right now. He's your blood, same as mine. Her voice trembled, but her eyes blazed, eyes that had stared down factory foremen in the 60s and buried a husband too soon. Karen whirled on her, the betrayal cutting deeper than any stranger's judgment. This is your fault. Always with your stories about Auntie Rosa and her special friend from the war. Poisoning him, Karen's finger jabbed like a bayonet. I won't have it. Not in Concord. Not in America. He'll end up like those freaks in the city, diseased, alone, burning in hell. Ellie didn't flinch. Hell's for the haters, Karen. Not the lovers. But words were no match for Karen's rage. She dragged Nathaniel toward the stairs, his pleas dissolving into sobs as Ellie lunged after them, her arthritic hands grasping at air. The screen door slammed, that gunshot echo, and Nathaniel was gone, bundled into the old Ford Taurus with a duffel bag of clothes and a heart full of shrapnel. They drove through the night, the Minuteman Trail blurring into I-95 South, Concord's colonial charm giving way to the neon sprawl of Boston. Karen didn't speak, her knuckles white on the wheel, the radio tuned to a staticky evangelical station preaching fire and brimstone. Nathaniel pressed his forehead to the cool glass, watching fireflies wink out like dying stars, each mile a stitch pulling him further from Ellie's kitchen, her donuts, her quiet acceptance. By dawn, they were in a Fleabag motel on the edge of Providence, Rhode Island, the first stop in Karen's frantic bid to fix him. She called it tough love, he called it exile. Weeks blurred into a haze of denial and desperation. Karen enrolled him in an online homeschool program, yanked him from the local community college prep classes, and forbade any contact with the outside world. Her new job at a Providence hospital kept her out long hours, leaving Nathaniel to rot in the motel's musty room, the TV droning infomercials about miracle cures. She whispered prayers over his sleeping form at night, her hand heavy on his brow like an exorcism. God can change you, baby. He will. But God didn't answer, and neither did Tommy's texts, blocked by Karen's ironclad parental controls. Nathaniel's sketches piled up, dark, feverish things of chained angels and fractured mirrors, until the walls closed in like a coffin. One night, in the fluorescent buzz of a 7-Eleven run for microwave dinners, he slipped a burner phone from the impulse rack, his hands shaking as he palmed it past the clerk's indifferent gaze. Back in the room, he texted the only number he knew by heart, Ellie's landline. Grandma, it's me. Please. The reply came hours later, a lifeline in pixels. Natty, My heart. I'm fighting. Come home when you can. Love wins. But home was a war zone now. Karen found the phone the next day, smashed it under her heel, and the beating started not with fists, but with words sharpened to flay. You're killing me. You know that? My own son. A pervert. Nathaniel curled into himself, the boy who dreamed of art school in New York shrinking to a shadow. He stopped eating, stopped sketching, his body a vessel for the ache that no prayer could purge. It was in that Providence purgatory, 3 months into the siege, that Sebastian appeared, like a rogue wave crashing over the breakwater of his despair. The motel backed onto a derelict strip mall, where chain-link fences sagged under graffiti tags and the air smelled of fryer grease from the all-night sub-shop. Nathaniel had taken to wandering there at dusk, chain-smoking pilfered camels to numb the gnaw in his gut, when he first saw the guy with the motorcycle. Sebastian was 20, all lean muscle and restless energy. His black leather jacket patched with band logos from dives Nathaniel had only read about in Spin magazine. He worked the counter at the sub-shop, slinging footlongs to truckers and college kids with a smirk that said he saw through all the bullshit. That evening, as Nathaniel slumped against the wall outside, nursing a bruised ego from another of Karen's lectures, Sebastian leaned out the service window, a meatball sub in one gloved hand. You look like death warmed over, kid. Want half this? On the house. His voice was pure Southie Boston rough, vowels flattened like asphalt after a heat wave. Nathaniel glanced up, startled, and met eyes the color of storm-tossed Atlantic. Gray-green, piercing, alive. I'm good, he muttered, but his stomach betrayed him with a growl loud enough to echo off the bricks. Sebastian chuckled, low and rumbling, and tossed the sub wrapped in foil over the counter. Liar. Eat. World's shitty enough without you starving on principle. Nathaniel caught it, the warmth seeping through the paper like an unintended kindness. He unwrapped it slowly, tearing off a bite under Sebastian's watchful gaze. The flavors exploded: marinara tang, provolone melt, meatballs spiced just right, and for the first time in months, food didn't taste like ash. Thanks, he said around a mouthful, wiping sauce from his chin. I'm Nate, Sebastian. But call me Seb. Nate sounds like a golden retriever. Seb's grin was crooked, a scar tugging at the corner of his mouth from some untold brawl. He nodded to the bike parked curbside, a battered Harley with custom flames licking the tank. You ride. Nathaniel shook his head, but the pull was there, the promise of wind-whipped freedom, chrome gleaming under sodium lamps. Never. But I'd kill to. Seb's eyes narrowed, praising, and something shifted in the air between them, electric as the kiss with Tommy but deeper, like roots seeking soil. Stick around closing time. I'll show you. That night, as Karen's shift stretched into overtime, Nathaniel lingered until the shop's neon sign flickered off. Seb locked up, straddling the Harley with the ease of someone born to rebel, and handed Nathaniel a spare helmet beat up, lined with the faint scent of someone else's cologne. Hop on. Hold tight. The engine roared to life, a thunder that vibrated through Nathaniel's bones, and they peeled out into the Providence night. Wind tore at his jacket, streetlights streaking like comets, the city unfolding in a blur of brick row houses and harbor fog. Seb took them over the Washington Bridge, the Seekonk River glittering below, then looped back through Federal Hill, Italian flags snapping in the breeze. Nathaniel clung to Seb's waist, face pressed to the warm leather of his back, the world narrowing to the rhythm of pistons and pulse. They ended up at India Point Park, the harbor lapping at pilings under a sickle moon. Seb killed the engine, and they sat on the grass, sharing a warm beer from his saddlebag, the city lights twinkling like distant judgments. "So, what's your story, Nate the Knot Dog?" Seb asked, stretching out, one arm propped behind his head, tattoos snaking from cuff to elbow, anchors, roses, a faded Semper Fi from his Marine dad who'd bailed early. Nathaniel hesitated, the beer loosening the knots in his chest. The words tumbled out then, a flood, the kiss, the slam of the door, Karen's rage, Ellie's tears. Seb listened without interrupting, his face shadowed but intent, fingers tracing patterns in the dew-kissed grass. When Nathaniel finished, voice cracking on Ellie's name, Seb sat up, close enough that Nathaniel could smell motor oil and sandalwood soap. "That's some heavy shit, man. Your mom's scared people do fucked up things. But you're gold. Real gold." Seb's hand found Nathaniel's knee, a tentative anchor, and the touch ignited something fierce and tender. Their eyes locked, breaths mingling in the salt air, and then Seb leaned in, lips brushing Nathaniel's in a kiss that was slow, deliberate, tasting of hops and hope. It wasn't fumbling like Tommy's. It was acclaiming, soft at first, then deepening as Nathaniel responded, hands fisting in Seb's jacket. They broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed together, the world remade in that harbor hush. "You're not alone anymore," Seb whispered, and Nathaniel believed him, for the first time since the pie cooled on the sill. What followed was a secret summer, stolen in the cracks of Karen's vigilance. By day, Nathaniel played the ghost son. Meals choked down in silence, prayers mouthed like curses while nights belonged to Seb. They'd meet at the strip mall, Seb's Harley purring like a shared heartbeat, and ride out to forgotten corners of Rhode Island, the cliffs of Beavertail State Park, where waves crashed like applause, the dunes of Narragansett Beach, sand shifting under blankets as they explored each other with hands and whispers, bodies mapping new territories under star-pricked skies. Seb was a revelation, 20 and scarred, but with a poet's soul hidden under the leather. He'd dropped out of community college after his mom's overdose 2 years back, drifting through odd jobs and bar fights to keep the lights on in his cramped apartment above a laundromat. "I fix what's broken," he'd say, grease under his nails from tinkering on bikes. "But some things you gotta let shatter first." Nathaniel opened up in ways he never had, sketching Seb by lamplight, jaw set in quiet fury, eyes crinkling with that rare laugh, while Seb read him Kerouac passages from a dog-eared on the road, their legs tangled on the sagging couch. Love bloomed fierce and fragile, laced with the thrill of the illicit. Seb introduced him to his crew, a ragtag family of misfits at the biker bar on Atwells Avenue. Tattooed lesbians slinging darts, trans kids mixing drinks, a grizzled vet named Mick who quoted Whitman between pulls of whiskey. "Family ain't blood," Mick would grunt, clapping Nathaniel's shoulder. "It's the ones who stick when the road gets rough." For the first time, Nathaniel felt seen not as a sin, but as a spark. But shadows loomed. Karen's suspicions sharpened. She'd tail him on errands, her Taurus idling at stoplights, eyes hawk-like in the rearview. One October evening, as leaves turned the streets to fire, she cornered him after a sub-shop study session. "Who's the hoodlum on the motorcycle?" "Some dealer trying to recruit my boy." Her voice was a scalpel, slicing through his denials. Nathaniel's defiance cracked. He's a friend, Mom. Someone who doesn't hate me for who I am. The slap came swift, a crack that echoed in the parking lot, her palm stinging his cheek red. Friends like that turn you into monsters. We're leaving tomorrow. Back to Concord? No. Further. Florida. My sister's got a place in Tampa. Fresh start. Panic clawed Nathaniel's throat. No. I won't go. Grandma's dead to us. She called last week, begging you to run back to her den of iniquity. I told her you're cured. Praying hard. Karen's eyes gleamed with fanatic zeal, the lie a blade she twisted without remorse. The betrayal landed like winter's first frost, numbing and absolute. Ellie, his compass, his haven, cut off, painted as the villain. That night, Nathaniel confessed everything to Seb over stolen hours in the apartment, rain lashing the windows like accusations. Seb held him through the sobs, strong arms a bulwark against the storm. Then run with me, Seb urged, voice rough with urgency. I've got a cousin in Brooklyn, says there's art gigs, queer scenes. We could make it. You and me against the world. Nathaniel wanted to, God, how he wanted to, picture Seb's hand in his, New York spires piercing the sky like promises. But fear rooted him. The boy who'd never left New England, tethered by whispers of failure and family ghosts. I can't leave her. Not yet. She's all I've got. Seb's jaw tightened, hurt flickering in those sea-storm eyes. And what about us? Am I just a summer fling till mommy dearest drags you south? The words hung heavy, a fracture in their fragile idol. They made love that night with desperate fervor, bodies slick and urgent, whispers turning to please, but dawn brought the rift wider. Seb roared off on his Harley, exhaust a bitter goodbye, leaving Nathaniel with a sketchbook page torn out, a portrait of them intertwined, captioned to the boy who mends me. Karen's grip tightened like a noose. They fled Providence at first light, the Taurus loaded with boxes and betrayals, I-95 unspooling south like a severed vein. Nathaniel stared out at the fading steeples, Seb's number etched in his memory but unreachable, the burner long since confiscated. Tampa awaited, a sun-bleached purgatory of strip malls and evangelical billboards, Aunt Rita's bungalow a cage with poolside views. Karen enrolled him in a Christian counseling group, sessions reeking of repression and rosewater, where boys like him learned to pray away the devil's urges. Months dragged into a year, the Florida sun bleaching Nathaniel's dreams to bone. He turned 18 in silence. A store-bought cake from Publix his only celebration, Karen's toast to redemption curdling in his mouth. Letters to Ellie came back unopened, returned to sender, each envelope a punch to the gut. Seb faded to echoes, a glimpsed motorcycle in a parking lot, a radio song that twisted the knife. Nathaniel buried himself in online art courses, his sketches now abstracts of shattered glass and shadowed embraces, uploaded anonymously to a queer forum where faceless avatars whispered you're not alone. Then, the call came on a muggy June afternoon in 2026, the AC humming futilely against the heat. Unknown number. Karen was at work, the house empty save for the gecko's skittering walls. Nathaniel answered, heart stuttering. Nate? Natty boy. The voice was a ghost. Frail but fierce, Ellie. It's me. Had to use the neighbor's line. Your ma's got spies. Tears blurred his vision, the phone slick in his palm. Grandma? Oh God. I thought. Hush now. I'm sick, kid. The big C. Docs give me months. Maybe less. Her cough rattled like dry leaves. But I ain't calling to whine. I need you here. One last time. Karen's lie had held, but Ellie's will hadn't bent. She'd been writing letters through back channels, a librarian friend in Providence forwarding mail, pouring love into pages yellowed with age spots, recipes for cider donuts, clippings of Nathaniel's anonymous art from the forum, memories of summers picking blueberries in the Berkshires. You're my legacy, Natty. Not blood, but soul. He lied to Karen that night, claiming a school project in Orlando, and bought a Greyhound ticket with savings from odd jobs. The bus ride north was a vigil, 30 hours of fluorescent flickers and snoring passengers, the landscape shifting from palm fronds to pine barrens to the familiar gray of interstate slush. Concord welcomed him with autumn chill, the clapboard house sagging under ivy like an old friend's weary hug. Ellie looked like a husk when he arrived, wheeled to the porch in her quilted robe, oxygen tubes snaking from her nose. But her eyes lit like lanterns at the sight of him. "There's my warrior," she rasped, pulling him into an embrace that smelled of hospital antiseptic and undimmed lavender. They talked for hours, Karen's rage, Seb's ghost, the ache of years stolen, until Ellie pressed a manila envelope into his hands. "My will. Read it later. First, promise me, live true. For both of us." She slipped away 2 weeks later, in the hush of a November dawn, the room filled with the scent of apple pie baked by neighbors who'd kept vigil. Nathaniel stood by her bedside, holding her hand as it cooled, the envelope burning in his pocket like a talisman. The funeral was a quiet affair, old friends from the Boston days, a rabbi who'd officiated her and Grandpa's wedding despite the churchgoers' side eyes. No sign of Karen, who'd hung up on the news with a curt her choice. But the reading, that was the thunderclap. Ellie's lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Miriam with a rainbow pin on her lapel, gathered them in the parlor amid dusty bookshelves and faded photos. Nathaniel sat alone on the floral settee, the house creaking like it mourned. When Miriam cleared her throat, unfolding the will with deliberate care, the room stilled. "To my grandson, Nathaniel Russo," she read, voice steady as granite, "I leave the house at 147 Walden Lane, free and clear, along with my life savings, $187,000, accrued from wise investments and a widow's thrift. But more, the deed to this home, which your mother rented from me all these years, now yours. And a letter to be read in private." Gasps rippled. Cousins who'd expected trinkets, aunts clutching pearls. But Nathaniel's world tilted. The house. Home. Ellie hadn't just survived Karen's siege. She'd outmaneuvered it, holding the title like a hidden ace, her necessary evil tenancy a velvet glove over an iron fist. The money, a nest egg from Grandpa's union pension, grown in quiet stocks, enough for art school, a life rebuilt. Karen burst in then, late and furious, her flight from Tampa a red-eye scramble. "This is theft, emotional blackmail." She loomed over the desk, face flushed, but Miriam didn't blink. Ellie's wishes, executed legally. She anticipated resistance, a nod to the envelope. "Read it." Nathaniel, alone in Ellie's sewing room later, thread spools like sentinels, he tore it open. Her handwriting, shaky but bold, "Natty, love isn't inherited, it's chosen. Your ma chose fear. I chose you. This house, it's your canvas. Paint it loud. And if that boy with the bike still haunts you, chase him. Ghosts don't mend hearts, living men do. Yours forever, Grandma Ellie. P.S. The cider recipes in the Bible, hollowed out. Don't let the Baptists win. Sobs racked him, cathartic and cleansing, the weight of exile lifting like fog burned off by sun. He moved in that week, the house a time capsule of comfort. Ellie's quilts on the bed, her records spinning Dylan anthems. Karen's calls turned to voicemails, apologies laced with conditions, pleas for reconciliation on God's terms. He let them go unanswered, the rift a scar he'd learned to trace without pain. Winter deepened, snow blanketing the fields like absolution, when fate or Ellie's ghost intervened again. Nathaniel had posted a tribute online, a charcoal of Ellie on the porch, oxygen tube and all, captioned "The revolution we baked." It went viral in niche circles, queer artists, New England locals, likes piling up like drifted flakes. Among them, a DM from an account at Seb Harley King. Holy shit, Nate, is that really you? Saw this and had to reach out. Miss you like hell. Brooklyn's cold without your sketches. The coffee shop reunion was in Cambridge. Neutral ground. A hipster haunt with exposed brick and pour-over brews. The Charles River iced over beyond the windows. Nathaniel arrived early, nerves jangling like loose change, his sketchbook clutched like armor. When Seb walked in, broader now from gym hours, tattoos blooming further up his arms, the air crackled with unfinished symphonies. You grew into yourself, Seb said, sliding into the booth, his hand finding Nathaniel's across the scarred wood table. No hesitation, just that storm sea gaze, softened by time and longing. They talked for hours, Seb's welding gig in a Brooklyn fab shop, the cousin's couch that became a lease, the tattoo of a donut inked on his ribs, for the woman who fed my heart. Nathaniel shared the will, the house, the hollowed Bible with its cinnamon-stained pages. Betrayal's echo lingered, Nathaniel's fear-fueled flight, Seb's hurt pride, but forgiveness flowed easy, warmed by Ellie's legacy. She brought us back, Nathaniel murmured, as snow swirled outside. Seb's thumb traced his knuckles. Nah. We did. But yeah, her will's ironclad. They rode back to Concord on Seb's rebuilt Harley. Nathaniel's arms wrapped tight, the wind a balm on old wounds. The house welcomed them with creaks and crackles, fire roaring in the hearth as they made love on the rug, slow, reverent, bodies remembering paths once trod. Dawn found them tangled in Ellie's quilt. Plans whispered. Art school for Nathaniel at RISD. Seb commuting for weekends. A life stitched from chosen threads. Karen came around eventually, a year later, on a tentative Easter visit. She stood on the porch, older in the lines around her eyes, a Tupperware of deviled eggs in hand, peace offering, olive branch. I was wrong, she said, voice small as a child's. Scared. But seeing you, whole, with him, her gaze flicked to Seb, chopping wood out back, muscles flexing under flannel. No lightning struck, just a nod, a hug that didn't quite mend but started the mending. Nathaniel didn't forgive fully, not yet, but he let her in, inch by inch, the way spring thaws frozen earth. Ellie would have approved, human, messy, laced with grace. In the garden that summer, as cider donuts baked and the Minuteman Trail bloomed anew, Nathaniel sketched Seb amid the maples. Strong lines, Soft Shadows, a portrait of revolution quiet and profound. Love, after all, was the only fight worth winning. And in that American heartland of clabbered dreams and harbor winds, they'd won it back. Fierce, flawed, forever.